Hi, everybody. Good morning. Super excited to have, I would say, kind of like a rock star leader in our Seattle community today, Beto. He's the executive director of Ventures, which is an organization that supports microbusinesses. And we'll talk a lot more about what they are. But some of the businesses that Ventures has incubated over the years are absolutely phenomenal. And they're kind of a mainstay in our community. And so, really excited to welcome you, Beto, to Data is Love. Will you just start with telling us a little bit about your career journey? Like, how did you get to be almost a decades long executive director of this very cool organization?
Thank you, Aparna. I'm very happy to be here. I appreciate the invitation. Hello to all your audience. So, yes, it's been a wonderful journey. So, short story, I am an immigrant that moved from Mexico, Guadalajara, which is the second largest city in the country, 20 years ago. From directly from Guadalajara to Seattle, I start very quickly my own business with only $250, selling jewelry at Fremont Sunday Market, which is kind of like what we're gonna talk more about it today about microenterprise and how do you can start a very micro small business. So very quickly I started that. I've been very entrepreneurial all my life. My grandparents, my parents, some of my siblings were all very entrepreneurial, very access to small business all our life. So I started doing that, and in 5 years, building that micro business, I was able to grow significantly. I to an opportunity to open a couple shops, one at Pike Place Market, and I have another one in Redmond Town Center Mall, and coffee shop in Capitol Hill. And then I start kind of building a movement of my Mexican folk art and jewelry. It was very early in Seattle area, and then after 5 years I became very sustainable on my business, which is the dream that come through as when they sell the American dream, which the American dream is changing a lot, and we can put that on the parking lot. But, anyways, my point at that time, I was feeling very successful as an immigrant and someone who looks like me. That people feel like a gay man, immigrant, just person of color thriving in a very difficult economy. So that's kind of like the short story. And then I start volunteering with Casa Latina, helping the worker center on how do they start their own business. Because one another thing that I challenged myself was I was undocumented, so I didn't have the social security of the residents to be in United States. So I was able to do everything legally, like opening my business, hiring people, renting spaces, everything legally. But I didn't have the social security, which is very contradictory. So this government is like very interesting if you know how to navigate it. So I was sharing that formula with the worker center at Casa Latina because I know some of them they want to do landscaping or construction or handyman. So I did that for like a year, and after that I found Ventures. Back on that time was Washington Cash Community Alliance for Self Help, and I'm the founder of the Spanish program for Ventures. So I start all the program from English to Spanish, and from there 14 years now in the organization, 8 as an executive director, and that's been my journey.
That's that's incredible, and I had no idea. I had no idea. $250 to start a new business. That how? How does that happen? That
Yeah.
feels like how much I guess today you would spend on dinner in Capitol Hill in Seattle, right? Like it feels like that just in some ways it feels like a very small amount of money. And like is that normal for small business owners to start with like a really small amount of capital?
Yeah, that's a really good question because people always ask me. Of course, we're talking about 20 years ago, but if you kind of monetize the economy and how the economy has changed in Seattle from 2003 to 2022,
Yeah.
I still believing, and this is my own perspective as an immigrant and someone who have different lenses. that this is a country of opportunities. Of course, it's many, many challenges that we're facing, and I'm one of those individuals who want to make a better world and social change, and that's what I always very opinionated and very present in government to make some change, and not only with government but with different groups. So going back to your question, is like it's possible to do start a small business, because what you really need is the guidance of putting together a business plan. Who is your target market? Who is your audience? How are you going to make money? How are you going to navigate the complexities of the system and taxes and all that kind of stuff? And back on that time, for me, $250 was just like a very small package of jewelry coming from Mexico to here. And I might also have that skill of jewelry designing. So because I grew up in that environment. So I have those skills. Let's say that was privileges for me growing up around those things. So I
Mhm.
implement my skills into that, and then it was a very captive audience. It was a lot of people who love my product, and that's what the reason was able to grow, and then from there adding more products and more services. I think that's what we do adventures. Well, I don't think that's what we do adventures. It's helping people to, what are your skills? What are your tools? What are your talents? And from there, build a business plan that help you to build wealth uh, through your passion, which is most of the people who own a business want to solve a problem. So it is possible, still possible to start a very small business. It's more competitive these days because the city has grown, the region is more expensive, but it's still possible. And that's where we exist adventures to navigate and help people with all what they need, including capital.
I love that. Okay, so we've been talking about micro businesses. Can you help us understand what exactly is a micro business versus a regular small and mid-sized business? How micro is micro?
Yeah, so we use the word of micro because most of the micro business are solopreneur. So what that means is starting with one person, and that person does everything. That person, it's the designer, the person who make the jewelry, the person who do the marketing, the person who open the store, the person who do taxes. So everything, and it looks very intimidating, right? When one person has to run the whole thing. So micro businesses from 1 to 5 employees. That's what the definition that we want to use, and that your revenue is no more than $150,000 per year. That's it's the Small Business Administration doesn't really have a very specific, if we want to go by the federal government, about micro. They have a micro loan program, which is access to capital for micro business in this kind of concept that I'm telling you. But
Mhm.
the difference of a small business into the micro is small business. The definition to the federal government of SBA is up to 500 employees. So from 1 to 500 employees. So that makes a huge difference. Uh, but the micro is really like that solopreneur, that person, that Beto 20 years ago when I immigrated from Mexico, that Lily who sells pupusas in West Seattle, one of our clients who
They are
now,
delicious. They are so good.
yeah.
They're so good.
So, and she started selling pupusas outside of Casa Latina to the worker center out of a cooler. So and then that's the opportunity that I see in micro enterprise. So yes, micro enterprise solopreneurs, and they do everything.
Something that I was really surprised to find as I was like doing my own little bit of research and preparing for this conversation is that micro enterprises are not only like 92% of all US businesses, which like definitely blew my mind. But also they hire a pretty big chunk of like they represent a really big portion of all workers in the US, like somewhere between 25 and 40 million people. So how is it that this is like there's so many people that are solopreneurs that own micro businesses, but it's not part of the mainstream conversation versus I think that, like where you're from in Mexico, I'm from India. Like we really like there is a culture around micro businesses, right? It's like the guy you buy your vegetables from, or um they're kind of everywhere. It's like the food stalls and yeah, but in the US it feels like really under the radar.
Yeah, you get a really good point. And again, my dedication on my last 20 years here in United States and to be continue is to continue advocating for that and make a movement of exactly what you're saying, because they get undermined or they get like a small business through the big businesses or to the big corporations, which at this point I think it's a whole ecosystem that this country needs. But at the same time, it's like when we hear backbone of the economy, and what are those? And they are micro enterprises, micro small businesses, small business. They are the individuals who really invest back into community. And we have to really put attention to that, because when what kind of community do you want to live? Do you want to live in an economy that you know your neighbors, that you know where your product or your food or your lunch it's been made, or you want to be in a community that is brought up for an exchange place? And I think that's for me is like I want to advocate of that place where we build community, where we know our neighbors, so where we build and the economies are healthier because it's a broader micro economy. So yes, of all your data, and then it's just sometimes we have not been able to organize to make that movement in Washington State. Just because I have my experience, we start seeing that movement growing in Olympia, and we have made a huge moves in the last 3 years, and that's been always my dream come true, to advocate, to organize, and to make that movement to to make sure that a community knows what small business are so important for our economy, but also to the community that we are living.
Yeah, a few months ago, we had Laura Kleiss on Data is Love, right? And she is another huge champion of small businesses. And she talked about like how much more of every dollar that's earned by a small business stays in the community versus if you spend money with a multinational, a very small percentage of it actually ever stays in your local economy, just sort of like filters right back up to their bank accounts in the Cayman Islands or like Switzerland or wherever they're stashing their money, right? Um, and there's like I can't imagine a future where Amazon's going to open a pupusa stand, but you never know, like the next iteration of the banana cart could be the pupusa stand. um, will you like give us a couple of examples, of like what kind of like community investment and impact you've seen from owners that Ventures has incubated in the last couple of years?
Yeah, first of all, I love Laura. Laura and I, we work together in so many projects. So yes, yes to her leadership. So yeah, again, I've been with Ventures for almost 15 years, and as I'm the first executive director, they come from the bottom to the top. Let's say I started with the specialist was my first title, and then I've been from specialist to coordinator to manager, director, and then executive director. So I've been seeing all this trajectory of businesses. Exactly, for I say that because I remember clients that I coach 15 years ago in my first class in Spanish, and now I have those businesses that they move out of poverty, because one of our mission adventures is to help people to move out of poverty by empowering to start their business. Basically, that's
Mm-hmm.
what we do. We just not just start a business, we empower people to move out of poverty. And then we help them to build wealth, especially if you have not been able to be part of economic opportunity. Let's say you've been in generational poverty, you didn't get access to resources, you don't know how to invest, you don't know how to do a business, you don't know how to buy a house, you don't know how to save for college, and I can keep going. Then you cannot build
Yeah.
wealth. My concept of social justice is how do we build that? In now, not only that, it's just in terms I'm an economic person, like someone who is my background is that. So my clients, I talk about Lily in West Seattle, Lily's catering services, Lily's restaurant now in West Seattle. She was one of them. Immigrant, undocumented, not English, don't even know how to take the bus. And when I met her 10 years ago to take the class, the first class that we offered, a week program, so which what we call the business basic course to put together your business plan, we have to really coach her to get there. And then through the all these 13 years serving Lily, she's coming through that American dream or sustainability of building well, owning her own restaurant, being all the farmers markets in Seattle, having their kids going to a school that it was a good fit for them, putting money on the table, food on the table consistently, and don't fear about what is her family provide for her community and her village back in El Salvador, buying a home and build wealth from that. So the impact that you make through this work that we do adventures stay in the community, and then it make an impact of the next generation. And then I can say Rosie and Fernando, other clients of ours, that they have a Spanish immersion businesses, one in Capitol Hill and one in Federal Way. And then from there they build that, and from there now they're doing uh, construction, remodeling, development, and they come and tell me, Beto, we're going to go to Europe because so for me, imagine if you've been in generational poverty and they have access and they feel with so proud. We're going to take our daughter when she graduated from University of Washington to this trip, and I can keep going. We serve about almost 1,000 clients per year, and I talk to all my clients in Spanish, but I have clients from the Black community, from the Asian community. I have clients, immigrants and refugees. I have Spanish speakers, veterans, you name it. And I wish I have like a lot of more time to tell you like all the stories, but that's what we have our annual reports and all that social media that we share because we have so many stories. And I just want to close with we let them do what success looks like for them, because I talk
Mhm.
about those ideas of like they have all these, but also success looks like to someone who make the decisions to say, I don't want to do this anymore because it's too much work, or it's not working, or I'm not making money, or I'm putting my health in jeopardy. And I applaud that too, because that success looks like too.
Mm. You've talked you've talked a little bit about poverty, right? And micro enterprises, and both the people who own them and the people who go to work for them are often making much more than the minimum wage, that I think, is kind of part and parcel of the immigrant and the BIPOC experience in the United States, specifically that the vast majority of the lowest paying jobs are held by people of color. Um,
Yeah. Just I do this because it's yes to all what you're saying, and that's where I when I have the privilege and the opportunity to be part of this movement of finding
mhm,
solutions of social justice through economics and economic opportunity, and find the all my clients are BIPOC women, LGBTQ plus, immigrants, Spanish, English as a second language. Their challenges that they are facing are bigger, and the reason that I say that is because they have not been invited to the table to be part of this economy, and it's a very difficult economy in United States, and it gets getting more. It's very complicated. So when they get access to a job and then they pay low wage jobs, it's very hard for them to build wealth. It's very hard for them even to
mhm,
feel connected to something that they want to do. And what I see over the years with the program that we offer is a lot of our clients work on those low wage pay wages, but at
Mm-hmm.
the same time they start building their business. It's a
Yeah.
combination and it's a lot of work, but our community is hardworking people and they are already doing that. They work 3 jobs. So instead doing 3 jobs, they do one job to pay the bills and then start their own business selling tamales on the weekends, or like doing some consulting or something, offering something, landscaping on the weekends. And that is when they start building, if they have a plan, if they have a guidance, if they work with ventures or with some other organizations. We're not the only one, but to guide them into how can you build from there that eventually you can leave your job
Yeah.
and move out of poverty and build from there and then generate your own job that pay you better and give you, I would say, more freedom. I want to be very honest, owning your own business doesn't give you 100% freedom. And those
Tell
who
me
want
about it.
to and for those who want to say, oh, I want to leave my job because I want to have more freedom and start my own business, well, we talk about that too. Rethink
Yeah.
that. But the difference is that you own it and eventually you can sell it if you build it
Mm-hmm.
and grow it and get the direction that you want.
Yeah, I guess I'm also curious because of, your sort of trajectory over the last 2 decades in Seattle, and you're very involved politically as well. Um, it's just kind of making me think that, when we can pull people out of these really, like, not just soul sucking minimum wage jobs, but like jobs that there's no way that the math shakes out for you to have any semblance of like comfort in those kinds of jobs. And yeah, you are working two and three of them because that's what you need to make your rent and put food on the table. And that doesn't create a lot of time for community or civic engagement, which we know is like absolutely critical to like preserving our communities. And I think increasingly to having democracy. And I'm just curious, like, what have you seen with, you've like seen thousands of entrepreneurs come through and be supported by ventures about how they are able to show up in our community when they're not needing to work two or three jobs.
So beautiful question. I love it because it's kind of what I was talking about earlier about the movement of entrepreneurship, but beyond that, what is these communities need? Because when you give them, as an individual who's been in generational poverty, the majority of the times they feel that they don't have the energy to participate in multiple projects, or they just go to work to what you're saying, like basically survive. When you give them the power and you empower them to start leading on their own business and start making money with their own idea, the system of their health, mental health, and even their body change. It's some data that I don't track a lot of that because I don't have time. We're still a small organization, but I have attend to a lot of seminars and a lot of information that you can see. It's kind of like where we talk about universal basic income. And I want to put that on the parking lot eventually because that's another thing that I really believe on and match it with entrepreneurship. But when you are able to do that, the individuals start getting very excited to advocate to solve problems. So ventures create an advocacy program since 2016 to mobilize microenterprises in our state, city, county. And it's amazing because this is not only go to Olympia and advocate for a specific bill that will make an impact. What we do trainings on what advocacy means and how do you reach up to your representatives of the state? How do you reach to how do you do a pitch to them? How do you know how to vote? We engage around all this and we train people with the concept of small business, but if you learn how to do that, you can do it for school, for health, for food, for services, for anything. So what we're trying to do is just very focused on business and advocate for business, but also we're building the new leaders of our
Mm-hmm.
community, especially. people of color, minorities, people who don't have the energy, as you're saying, because they've been in this kind of like cycle of working and they don't know. And when you power that, oh my God, I've been doing since 2016, and now I start seeing the results. The last legislature in Olympia, and I see 10 of my clients advocating. Before it was me talking in every group, and now I don't have to say anything. I don't even, I go and I just back sit behind the scenes and I see all these 10 individuals advocating, and that's beautiful because that's building community. And then it's like sustainability.
Oh, you're gonna make me cry. Yeah, I just the ripple effect of helping somebody come into their own power. It's not like they didn't have it. But when you pull them out of like the grind, it's pretty incredible. I'm also here, like, you've said it multiple times, like you've been at Ventures for, 14 years, and this advocacy program is now 6 years old, and you're starting to see results. And in that, what I hear is that it takes a little bit of time, right? Like supporting Lily, um, it takes time. She wasn't going to be like a mega star small business owner in 6 months or 9 months or a year. And it also sounds to me like it takes a lot of like being on the ground with people, actually talking to people, which is a contradiction to, in some ways, the world we live in today, where like supposedly we can solve everything with technology. Like we can make an app to solve every single problem people have, and like help them scale really fast. And right, that's not the case. You leave a lot of people behind when you're not willing to be on the ground with them. um, I want to pivot a little bit as we start to, like wrap up our conversation, and talk about how micro enterprises can, interface with maybe the more mainstream business community, as I think part of a lot of the diversity, equity, and inclusion and anti-racism work that's taken off in the last 3 years. There's also been a lot more conversation about supplier diversity, but still people are going back to the same vendors, the same suppliers, the ones they have relationship with, the ones that have the infrastructure. Um, so it's not necessarily helping to diversify the pool. So what is your advice for people that are sourcing from like micro or like really small businesses as part of their like supplier diversity program?
Yeah, that's a conversation that we've been having for years, to be honest, with our government. And I do
Mm-hmm.
believe that the mainstream or larger businesses or corporations will continue doing their work. Uh,
Yeah.
I, I think it's a lot of conversations of what the economy looks like, but I don't believe that it's going to change quickly. What
Mm-hmm.
I believe at Ventures is how do we unify? How do we create a culture of small business where the bigger or larger or those organizations who have more help those who don't? And that's what the diversity, equity, and inclusion conversations have been happening lately through the pandemic and the injustices that we saw. But for
Yeah.
me, it's really being mindful of how you really gonna invest in the community that you are doing business with. And it's
Mm-hmm.
called social responsibility offices. In the nonprofit sector, we work a lot with those corporations, social responsibility. But it's really having a good partnership between the nonprofit, government, and corporate in the social responsibility of help them understand what are the barriers for the clients that we serve at Ventures, for example. Beautiful story through the pandemic. One of my clients make Chantal Jackson beautiful food, lunches. She make lunches. She was very creative through the pandemic, and she pivot and start creating lunches. Uh, Symetra and Kaiser Permanente reached out to me that they were going to invest in provide food to uh, to the workers who were in the health. Uh, because they were putting their life up front. So short story, Chantel, Symmetra, and Kaiser Permanente partner, and they sign a contract for like 1,000 meals per day during, I don't remember exactly all the details, but my point is I connected the dots. That's kind of our logo is, if you see it, is connecting the dots, connecting. And then since then, the supplier for food and for events is being Chantel and other clients. So we're talking about something that could that sounds like pretty simple and very less complicated. It's not a contract, it's not building a bridge, it's not doing all these bigger things that we think or small business cannot do, or maybe they are not there. We're talking about other things, cleaning a building, doing landscaping, painting, handyman, providing that food, jewelry for your annual gifts, gift baskets. We have a store at Pike Place Market. We incubate 70 businesses in retail and we sell baskets. Go and buy those baskets for venture store for your corporate gifts instead ordering it from the big guy. So that's how corporate can engage and really be mindful, and also a lot of conversations in our region. And I think we're making progress, and these companies more progressive are saying yes to all that what you're saying, Beto. And not only me, but how do we support that? So my recommendation is reach out to those organizations like ventures that they are helping small business and build a bridge. If you feel that is not possible when you are requesting someone to do a bidding for your contract, build a bridge and let us understand what are you trying to do, and the nonprofit sector can help you with that. So don't just go in silos. So I'm a big build community unifying guy that I believe that we can unify and not polarize. So that's my own belief.
I love it. Yeah, I think that you definitely hit a lot of the points. It's yeah, if you're trying to procure and you're not getting the responses, I think it's like a pretty high chance that folks don't actually even understand what the process is, and certainly plowing through 30-page contracts is not going to be like what a solopreneur has the capacity to do. They don't have a lawyer on retainer, right? And this is where I think businesses like ventures can really plug in and make the connection. And I'm also hearing like, take a little bit of time, be patient. You know, it's not going to happen overnight, but certainly like once you put those structures in place, things can happen more often. Um, I love the venture store. I go there all of the time. I'm totally picking up all of the hints about buying jewelry. And it definitely is my major weakness. I have gobs and gobs and gobs of it from farmers markets and all the places. So we're gonna share out information about ventures specifically. For the folks that tune in to Data is Love, is there anything that they can do to help sort of amplify the movement that you're building?
Thank you for supporting entrepreneurs at our ventures marketplace. I appreciate that. So yeah, I feel like it's just continue being part of our movement, and it's many ways. I divide it in time. People can donate their time through volunteerism. People, we're always recruiting business coaches, people who want to support our entrepreneurs, people who have experience in the industry, and we have an 8-week program every quarter in English and Spanish where people can um, volunteer and coach another entrepreneur that is, and it's a beautiful experience. People can donate their talents. Uh, a lot, as you're saying, an attorney on retainer, marketing. We have a lot of volunteers that they come to us, but also as a nonprofit, we are constantly helping people, and we need help too from talented people. So we have a pro bono attorney who advises on our HR, for example. So I divided your time, talent, and of course, treasure. When I say treasure, how people can support our mission. We're a nonprofit, we're a 501c3. We are a CDFI, Community Development Financial Institution, that is certified by the government. So basically, we act
Mhm.
like a bank. We provide capital to those businesses, so up to $50,000. So interest very competitive, and we're a SBA, the Small Business Administration lender. So, but all the technical assistant training, coaching, or stores or commercial kitchen, everything the ventures offer on all the resources that we offer costs money to sustain. And we do a lot of fundraising, and that's something that I love doing because I believe in this project, and I believe too that we can continue building and growing it. So that's how people can help. And if you don't have any of the time, talent, or treasure at this moment, just share the stories. Go and support our clients. Go and eat locally. Go and buy a product as you're doing it. It makes a huge difference, and it takes a village if we all collaborate together. And it doesn't have to be only ventures. I'm always advocate for all small businesses. It's many. Everybody have small business right next to their neighborhood. Just make that decision. When you're gonna make the decision, kind of like Laura Kleiss has been doing, being intentional with your money, which I love that because she's doing all the marketing for ventures in that kind of like we always work like we build them and now just go and market them, please, and help people to go and buy them and connect them. So it takes a village.
Oh, I love it. Okay. Um, Great. I think that we're gonna do probably all of those things. And yes, like writing checks, I feel like I'm pretty shameless when it comes to that. None of this work happens without financial support, right? Like it's impossible. You have to pay salaries, you have to run programs. So I'm gonna encourage people also to like write a check. And if you're a larger business owner, that's a tax deduction on your end of the year taxes, which lowers your bill. So it's just kind of a virtuous cycle. Beto, thank you so much for joining me this morning. It's like the perfect start to the week, and I'm excited to see like what happens with legislation in the state of Washington, but like really around the country with the movement of supporting micro enterprises. Thank you.
Thank you, Aparna. It was lovely. It's always wonderful to see you and appreciate the invitation. And thank you for your audience for being listening and supporting small business micro enterprises. And let's keep moving that. And muchas gracias a todos. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you, you too. Adios.